Good day, good evening class. We're going to talk today on the module which is based on the HIV/AIDS studies 1, the code HS10S1. My name is Michael Mulondo and I'm your presenter for this course. I'm going to look, for an example, at the following aspects of the subject. We're going to look at the overview of HIV/AIDS. We're going to look at the global overview. How does the statistics look with regard to HIV/AIDS globally? Then we're also going to look then locally, and then we're going to look at how does it look in Namibia. Then I'm going to look at define what is HIV and what is AIDS. So it's very important. Sometimes students, they get confused. They don't know the difference between HIV and AIDS. So we're going to look at those aspects. Then thirdly, we're going to look at how is HIV transmitted. How can we prevent HIV, and then also what myths are there that are associated to HIV/AIDS. And then we're going to look, number 4, at the immune system. How does the immune system work within somebody that a human being, for an example, and how, when it comes to HIV and the infection of HIV, what role does the immune system play? So which is very important. Then we're going to look at sexual transmitted infections, STI, and how they are actually playing a role with regard when it comes to HIV/AIDS. And sexual transmitted infections put a person at high risk, especially when it comes to HIV infection. So there's also an aspect we're going to look at. Then we're going to look at sex workers, and what are the role of sex workers, and we're going to look at the policy, the legal aspect, and then also the cultural, social aspect, and then going to look in light with the HIV. Then we're going to look at the services that are available, prevention services, care services, treatment and support services. And then we're going to look then on prevention aspects. How can you prevent HIV infection, and what strategies can you apply in order for you to be effective when it comes to HIV prevention? And of course, we're going to end up with volunteering, counseling, and testing, and how you can help somebody to go for a volunteer, or to volunteer him or herself to go for counseling and then for testing. So the first aspect we're going to look at is birth statistics. So I've taken the statistics from UNAIDS, looking at the 2014, and then also the CIA World Fact Book of 2015, and then also the NSF, or the National Strategic Framework of Namibia, of 2015. So I'm going to look, so I've used that and in order to give you this infection. So I will also encourage you as a student to look at the updated information and what information is available. So the global statistic shows that there are currently 35 plus minus 35 million people living with HIV/AIDS. So we are now, statistic 2014 were 5-6 billion people. So from that we are talking about 35 people living with HIV/AIDS. From that we have 2.1 million people that are newly infected, which is quite scary. And then most people that are dying are 1.5 million people that are dying on the planet, or during that time, 2014, 2015, were 1.5 million. So when we look at Southern Africa, what are the statistics? Sub-Saharan Africa, Southern Africa, where Namibia is part of it, SADC, we're talking about 24 million people living with HIV/AIDS. So if you take the 35 million globally and you take the statistics in Sub-Saharan Africa, then you will see that statistic in Sub-Saharan Africa is quite high, because in Sub-Saharan we've got 24 million people that are living with HIV/AIDS. We have from that statistics, remember globally there are 2.1 million people that are living, that are newly infected. And from that 2.1 people, 1.4, more than 50%, are actually in Sub-Saharan Africa. Namibia is part of it. And then of course 1.1 million. So if 1.5 million people globally die because of AIDS, 1.5. Then we are talking about 1.1 million people. So it's plus minus 98% of global death that are AIDS related are actually happening in sub-Saharan Africa, which is very scary. Let's look at the statistic of Namibia. The first case was reported in 1986. In 2014, we had 220,000 people living with HIV/AIDS, and in 2009 it was 5,000. Now, as you can see, from 2009 2004, there is a big difference. So there were a lot of infection that took place, and then in 2009, when we took the antenatal sentinel survey, there were 13.3% people that were actually that was the prevalence. HIV prevalence, and the life expectancy now in 2050 2060 is between the age of 55 and then also 60 years old. Now let's define HIV. HIV is a virus. It's a virus like any virus. So now we have to understand what the acronym of HIV stands for. HIV stands for Human Immunodeficiency Virus. So what does it mean with human? It means that humans are being infected with this virus. Animals cannot be infected, but humans are being infected with this virus. And this virus can be infected from human to human. That's why it starts with human. Secondly, it says immunodeficiency. Immuno stands for your system. It stands for your immune system. And deficiency means that you have lack of it. So which means your immune system becomes less in your body because it's been attacked. And that's the immune. That's actually your defend body that defend your body against the disease. Then thirdly, virus, it's infection. It's very tiny infection particles that actually causes people to have this disease. And if people then are infected, then this AIDS particles go into your cells, and then it then evolve and mutate within your body. And this is what HIV stands for, a human immunodeficiency deficiency virus. The other aspect which is also very important is the aspect or the definition of AIDS. What is AIDS? AIDS stands for AIDS. AIDS means acquired. I stands for immune, and D stands for deficiency, and then syndrome means this. It's a symptom. So AIDS, it's something that you acquired. So you acquire the disease through infection, and then your defense system or your immune is being attacked. And then deficiency means your immune system, you lack that immune system within your body. It's absent, and then at the end you find yourself that you have the symptoms. And this is mostly after a period of 10 to 15 years when you are being infected that you experience this as symptoms that you are HIV positive. So that's where the definition between HIV and AIDS. So the third thing that we're going to look at also, which is very important, is that you have to look, if you look at those pictures, you will see the green ones are actually the HIV particles or your T cells. Your T cells or your CD4 cells are actually those cells that actually fight any infection that comes to your body, even if you have a flu. These cells or the CD4 cells are there in your body. It helps your body when your body is attacked, and it's what we call the white blood cells. So if you hear about the CD4 count cells or the CD4 cells or a T cell, it's actually your immune body. It's your immune system or your cells that help your body to fight the attack. And as you can see, that's what happening within your body. So you will see the green ones are the HIV particles, and I will also show you the next slide what happens. So the green one is the HIV particles that goes into your bloodstream. Now, as you can see, those red dots are actually your blood cells. So, and those are there to actually attack. Now, what the green dot are is the HIV or the HIV virus itself that goes into your bloodstream, and as it goes into your bloodstream, of course, it goes in order to infect your blood. Now, I'm going to explain again in detail later through the slide what happens within your blood itself when it enters your T cells. Now, there are different modes of infection. The first one is when you have unprotected sex. You don't use a condom or you don't protect yourself. Secondly is when you are infected or you came in contact with fluids like blood. It can also be that if you accidentally prick yourself with a needle. Some people say, what if I kiss someone, if that person is there also HIV in saliva? You need at least 10 liters of saliva to get HIV. But I don't say you don't get HIV through kiss. You might get if you have a cut in your lip or in your gums, or your partner is having, and as long as there is blood exchange of fluid, or you're in contact with blood or any other fluid that's already infected, that's how you can get the HIV virus, which is very important. The other aspect or mode of transmission is then also when the mother is HIV positive and she infects her child. The other factors that we have to look at also is currently when you look at the HIV in Namibia itself, Africa, most of the infection or the way how people are being infected is through sex, heterosex. If you have more than one partner, this is how you can get AIDS. The other aspect is also when you are sexually abused. For example, you are raped and you know you're not protected, you can also get AIDS. The other issue is if you are having misconception or you are ignorant, thinking that you are immune, that AIDS or HIV does not exist because of ignorance, you can also get infected. And of course, the use of condoms, circumcision, and then also migration. Most of them are truck drivers going from one place to another place. So they don't have a spouse, or the spouse is at home and they are for days and for months on the road. So the temptation is that they might find someone and having unprotected sex. Alcohol and drug abuse. Many people they are having alcohol and they find themselves that they are actually so drunk that they cannot protect themselves. And then of course when it comes also when you are having stigma and discrimination. So you need to have safer sex. You have to look at this. So the other myth that we can look at is people think that they can get HIV through sweat or through urine, or if I share my cup with somebody that's HIV positive. Those are myths. You can't get HIV through that. People say there is a cure for HIV. It's very debatable today, especially when you look at science. The other issue is when they say that if you are HIV positive, then you must have sex with a virgin. And the moment you have sex with a virgin, that you can get cured from HIV. That's not right. It's false. It's wrong. It's not true. You cannot get healed through having sex with a virgin. Then the other myth which people are also having, for example, they say that HIV can be transmitted by mosquitoes. It cannot happen. The only sickness that can be, or infection that you can get from mosquitoes, is malaria and other malaria-related diseases. And then, of course, it's very important. So this is the aspect. If you look at the slide, the transmission, this is how it works. The HIV virus, it comes to your T cells in your white blood body. Remember what I'm talking about? I explained to you about the T cells. It actually go into your T cells, and when it goes into your T cells, then it actually replicates itself. The moment it goes into your T cells or your CD4 cell, it produces up to 10 billion AIDS particles per day. So the moment you are infected and it goes into your T cell, because that's what it wants to do, it wants to go into your antibody. And the moment it's into your antibody T cells, then your antibody, your T cell that's supposed to protect your body, becomes a factory that produces AIDS particles. And it was first discovered in 1983. And if you can look through that, again, this is what happens. The moment it comes into your T cells, and your T cells becomes a factory of producing, and then it actually mutate, and then it produce more HIV virus within you. And that's where, and if you are not on ARV or ART, then you cannot reduce the replication of the HIV virus within your bloodstream. So the other thing is the immune system. This is how the immune system is looking at. As I've also explained, that the whole purpose of your immune system is to defend your body against any intrude or any attack, whether it's malaria, whether it's flu, and this is the whole body why. And you have to understand how the immune system is working, and the HIV virus is so intellectual. Scientists are still baffled today why the HIV virus knows when and how and which T cells to attack, especially when it comes to your HIV or to your T cells. So the HIV virus use your immune system to produce or to reproduce itself. So as you can see, there are also the aspect of sexual transmitted diseases, and it's very important that you have to understand STI, how does STI work, and why STI is very important. So you will see on your pictures there are different types of sexual transmitted diseases: syphilis, genital warts, herpes, chlamydia, hepatitis C, gonorrhea. And when you are infected with sexual transmitted diseases, then your chances of getting HIV is very high. So you are actually at high risk, and you need to get treatment for that. And if you are sexual active and you know that you are not protecting yourself or you are not cautious, then you have to go for STI testing. Also, it's very important that if you look at STI, it puts you at risk, as I've said. And then, of course, some of the symptoms that you can look at, especially when it's at advanced stage and where you did not go for treatment, is that you will always see that there are sores coming in your private part. Some ulcers are appearing, and there are some of the symptoms that you can look at. For an example, is you will see that there are ulcers in your genitals. You will see your genitals are discharging something, a fluid, which are very smelly. And then, of course, it's very important to look at it. And then, of course, some of the other symptoms you will experience pain in your private part, in your abdominal. So when it comes to HIV/AIDS, sex workers play a very important role. There are 4 questions that we always that we have to ask ourselves. The first question, sex workers, is prostitution or sex work a risk factor for HIV/AIDS? If it's yes, why? If it's no, why not? The second question is, it's not just the sex workers, but the clients that are going to the sex workers. What are their chance that they are at high risk of getting HIV/AIDS? The other aspect that you must look at is what resources are there available for sex workers to use to prevent themselves to become HIV, and then also to help their clients, for example, to know about the risk of HIV/AIDS. And then the other aspect that we have to ask, and which is a big question globally, and not just in Namibia, should sex work be legalized or decriminalized? Will that help, whether we legalize or decriminalize sex work in Namibia or globally? Will that help with the prevention of HIV/AIDS in Namibia? So it's very important to look at those aspects. And as you can look at the next slide, it look at the issue of prevention. And as I say, when we look at HIV, there are 3 or 4 aspects, and when we want to give services to our client, and when it comes to HIV, the first service is the service of prevention. Prevention is better than cure. So how can we prevent somebody to be infected with HIV or reinfected? The second thing is care. Those that are living with HIV, there are people that are HIV positive. How can we care for them? And of course, the other aspect of care is when you know that you are HIV positive, how can you care for yourself? And the third aspect of HIV is treatment. You have to go on treatment. It's very important that when you know that you are HIV positive, you have to go for your HIV test. And then after you go for your HIV test, you have to go on treatment. And then, of course, the other aspect of of HIV services, or the services that we give, is then also support. You have to be part of a support group. It's a comprehensive approach. So you need to be part of the support group, because you don't need to be alone to survive the sickness. There are also a lot of people out there that are HIV positive. And as you can look at the slide, it look at the whole issue of the social, economic, the human rights of the person. The other aspect is then we're going to look at strategies that you can implement. So there are different strategies that you can implement as part of your HIV prevention. One of the strategy that you can look at is the whole aspect of sexual transmission. Is how can you talk, for an example, to young people, that about their sexual debut, their first sexual experience, and HIV. It's all about sex. So you have to talk about to young people, to your family, to your children, to your friends, and about sex, because that's how HIV is being transmitted. So you have to know and talk about sex and sexuality. It's very important. The second aspect or strategy you can look is you can look at the issue of blood. Blood transmission. Is it safe? Is it not safe? And this is also the aspect that you can also look at. The other one strategy that you can look at, which is very, very important, of course, is the mother-to-child transmission. Now we are talking globally about the elimination of mother-to-child transmission. So this is also an aspect which is very much neglected, especially when it comes to strategies into HIV prevention, that we neglect the mothers, especially our young mothers that are pregnant, and how to help them, that when they are becoming pregnant, and that their child that is going to be born doesn't need to be infected, so they can go on ART. So this is also part of the aspect we have to look at, especially when you're going to look at prevention of HIV. The other aspect then is very important. Look at treatment. You have to stick to your treatment. When somebody is HIV positive and you go on ARV and you use your ARV, we call that you are on the first regimen. The moment you default to use your ARV treatment, then the chances for you to come on the second regimen it puts you actually at risk, and it's very slim. And that's why it's very important that when you are on treatment, you have to prolong, you have to use your treatment, and you have to look at so strategies. Looking at your strategies for HIV prevention include all of these aspects: sexual transmission, the blood itself, mother-to-child transmission elimination, and then of course the use of treatment. Then the last aspect that I want to talk on is the issue of volunteering and testing. It's very important that many people that are HIV positive, that they don't know that they are HIV positive. That's number one. Secondly is you are working with people that are ignorant or they have misconception about HIV. It's very important that you need to encourage people that the sooner you know your HIV status, the greater your chances to live longer. Because as I've explained earlier in my slides, my slide is that you have to understand that when you are going to know that you are HIV positive and you go on ARV, that your lifespan will be prolonged. So when you are looking at somebody that's HIV positive, encourage that person. So the aspect of VCT or volunteer counseling and testing, there are certain processes that you have to go through. Let me just explain quickly. If you go for a VCT or for a volunteer counseling services, the first thing that you do, you go in and then you go what we call a pre-test counseling. The pre-test counseling is where the counselor will sit with you alone with the counseling, nobody else. It's very confidential. It's only you, only two people in that room. That person will give you what we call a pre-test counseling. The reason why we call it a pre-test counseling, it's a counseling session that you are going through before the test. So before the test, the counselor will explain to you what the test is all about and what you will expect. Then the second part is then they will take your blood. where your blood is being taken and then your blood is being tested. And as you can see on the picture there, the slide, so it explained to you what happened with the test. You are being pricked, they take the blood, they put it into a sample, and then they're actually testing your blood for 15 minutes to 20 minutes. Then after your blood has been tested and then the results are available, then the counselor will call you in for the next phase or process, which we call the post-test counseling. And it actually only means counseling after the test. So that's what post-test means. So that's where the counselor calls you in and tell you this is what your status is all about, and to know your status. And the reason of the post-test counseling is just to know what the status of your if you are HIV positive or whether you are HIV negative, and the counselor will then help you then with referral systems or referral counseling or further services when you are HIV positive. So that's the end of our session with regard to HIV 1, and so please refer to your IOL study guide for further, and just know that health starts here, and I hope that you will be ready for your assignments, for your test, and for your exams. Thank you.